Okay. Yeah, so we'll just start sitting comfortably and come into our bodies for our New Year yin. Happy New Yin. Okay, so sitting comfortably with a nice long spine. You might be sitting cross-legged, whatever's comfortable for you, right? And just starting to go inside. So if you want to close your eyes, you can, but we'll just start to slow down our breath a little bit and kind of deepen it, elongate our breath, and let your mind just focus on the breath. Right? So as we inhale, we're drawing the air all the way down to the pelvis. Feel it going all the way down and then exhaling it all the way out. If you want to add a little sound on the exhale, a little sigh or anything that wants to come out, relaxing the belly, just letting the hips relax in the shoulders, the jaw. I have a little background music going on with my radiators. So just letting what wants to come out. Maybe having a little bit of a pause between the inhale and the exhale. And then taking one hand to just below the navel, we'll gently tap the hara or the dantian area. Just the area that's the power center of the body, the earth chakra area, just gently tapping as we breathe. And then bringing our fingertips up to our heart and tapping around the heart and around the thymus, along the chest, stimulating our heart and our immune system. And then bringing the hands up to the head and massaging our scalp. It's a little massaging of the scalp all over those meridian channels that pass through the scalp, stimulating our brain. And then the ears can get a little massage so we can wake up our vagus nerve. So if you want to just rub a little bit around the ears, gently pull and maybe open those folds and then putting our fingers inside of our ear, we'll gently pull down and hold and take a couple breaths. So might feel that automatic relaxing of the body. Great. And then releasing the arms out. We'll move our spine by reaching forward and pulling our heart back toward our spine and then bringing our arms back and lifting the heart. So flapping wings, flapping our wings as we move our spine a little bit. Yeah, just kind of arching and letting it round. Also stimulating our heart chakra. And then we'll let our arms relax down and come into a butterfly pose where I already happen to be. You'd like to put a pillow under your knees. It also is helpful to allow the hips to relax and let the legs relax. And we'll just come forward over our legs here. So gradually coming into the pose. Of course, we do butterfly a lot, so it's a nice, easy pose to start with. Gently opening our hips, stretching our sacrum, stretching our gallbladder channel. So if you want to massage your feet as you're in butterfly, you might just squeeze the feet, rub them, or whatever your feet like. A little massage. Butterfly pose is the best pose for giving the sacrum a really good all-around stretch. So it stretches it in all directions. Good for our sacrum area. Of course, we don't usually massage our feet that often, probably, so it gives us an opportunity to do that. We're comfortable rounding our spine and letting our head just hang forward. Getting that nice stretch throughout the spine and the neck area. Pretty much the only way to stretch the spine is to round it, decompress the vertebra. Okay, so we'll slowly come up from there. Take your time coming up. And then maybe bring the hands behind and windshield wiper the legs a little bit. Let them move. Good. And then we'll open into a straddle, coming into half butterfly by bringing the left foot in to the thigh, toward the groin if possible, as close as you're comfortable. You might put a bolster under that knee if you need it. And we'll turn toward our right leg and just start to come forward here. So just relaxing over that leg. Sits bones on the ground. Taking note of the breath. Hanging out in a yin pose is a good opportunity to focus more on the breath and maybe practice the breathing a little bit by counting. I don't know if you ever feel like counting the breath. You can take 4 counts on the inhale, little pause, and then maybe 6, maybe 8 counts on the exhale, depending on your breathing rhythm. My exhales tend to be long. And then taking a small pause and then inhaling. Just counting the breath gets us into that deeper, slower breathing rhythm. And we'll just lifting the torso a little bit up. We'll bring our left hand to the low back hip area and just turning a little bit to face forward, kind of opening to the front. And if you'd like to, you can bring your arm over the head, but you don't have to, it's optional. And it can come down at any point back to the leg. So we want to keep our head lifted here and make sure our neck is comfortable. Increasing that stretch through the hip and the side body. Getting into the bladder meridian and the gallbladder and the spleen meridian in particular. Such a good stretch for the hip and outer, especially the outer part of the hip, right? Outside area of the hip. Anytime your arm wants to float down to your leg, it can. You can keep it or let it float down. Yeah. Then bringing our arm down to our leg if it isn't already there and facing the leg. Finding ourselves maybe getting a little deeper into the stretch, feeling it a little, belly a little closer to our leg. And then we're going to lift the torso just a little bit again, bringing the right hand out to the back outside and the left hand just resting on the outside of your calf. Just lengthen the spine and gently twist to look behind you. So we're just taking a little twist here. Make sure you're lengthening the spine. Lift it. Just breathing here. And then coming back to our leg one more time, relaxing over that leg. Okay, so start to slowly come up from that side, bringing our hands under us to help us walk up to sitting. We always want to come out of the pose slowly to give our connective tissue a chance to come back. So extending the legs out, give them a little shake because it's the the connective tissue that take a while to come back. They're not like the muscles. Okay, and then we'll open into a straddle again and bring our right foot in toward our thigh, toward the groin area. We need support under that leg. And we'll come forward over our left leg. Another option, if this doesn't work for you, which it doesn't always work for me, is to just straddle the legs and leave them in a straddle. That knee is not enjoying the half butterfly. So relaxing over our left leg. Of course, if we're comfortable letting our spine round and letting our head hang, getting that stretch through the spine and the vertebra. If it's not comfortable for your head, of course, you can lift it or support it with your hand. You can always use your hand to support the head and neck. This is half butterfly is a particularly good, I think, pose for the spleen, especially when you add a twist to it. Get our spleen meridian and our spleen off to a good start this new year for nourishing and nurturing. So we can allow ourselves to be nurtured. I think of nurturing as more of a yin activity. It's more of an allowing activity than a yang active activity, right? You have to be in a space of allowing in order to be nurtured. You can't make yourself be nurtured, right? So we're going to lift up a little bit and bring our right hand behind our hip and low back, twisting a little bit to the front. So we can open to the front here. Feel that stretch, and then maybe the arm wants to come over the head. Optional. And the head stays kind of lifted to help the neck feel supported. Of course, but having the arm up like this adds a little bit of yang to the yin pose. Often a little bit of yang involved in yin poses. Anytime the arm wants to come down to the leg, you can let it float down, or you can keep it up a little longer. The spleen meridian starts at the upper edge of our big toenail, and it travels up through the foot, kind of on the inside of the ankle, up through the inside, kind of toward the top of the leg, and passes, through the hip area where we're getting that good stretch. Interpenetrates into the organs, the digestive organs, and the heart. And it runs like a little zigzaggy line up the side of the rib cage and comes through the chest. Of course, it connects with the breasts because the spleen and the breasts are very closely associated. So we're going to lift up a little bit here. So just lift the torso a bit, and then bringing your left hand back, and the right hand can sort of press into the outside of your calf. We're going to lengthen and just spiral into a little bit of a twist. Back here. Just taking a couple breaths. Really getting into our spleen meridian now. All right, and then coming back to face the leg one more time, just relaxing over that leg a little longer. So yeah, that spleen meridian connects in with the mammary glands, which is the connection between the tongue, the base of the tongue, and the mammary glands are so much a part of the development of the spleen and our ability to nourish and nurture, right? Think of nursing, breastfeeding. Begins at the beginning of life. Let's slowly start to come up from there, using our hands to come up to sitting. This leg is bent. Unbend it. Bring the legs out front. Shake them and give them a little movement. And then we'll just come over our legs in caterpillar here. We'll just come forward for a couple of minutes. So making sure that our pelvis can come forward and it's not tilted back. If it is tilted and it's not able to come forward, you want to make sure the hips are bolstered. Right? Sit on folded up blanket or a pillow or something. Another very good stretch for our sacrum, of course. Feel that. Any forward fold of the body is naturally relaxing. Right? It's a natural way to relax. Okay, so go ahead and start to come up from our caterpillar. So walking up to sitting, and we'll bring our hands behind our hips. You might bend the knees and bring your feet under you and just lift the hips up and down a few times. Or just sit back, kind of resting on your hands and lifting your heart. If you don't want to, if this doesn't work for your wrists or you don't want to do the table, lift and lower. And then we're going to come into Sphinx pose. So you might have a pillow, folded up blanket handy. To begin with, we'll come onto our belly and come into infant pose. So infant is the same as locust in yang yoga. So we'll bring our arms alongside our body, right? And just reach for our feet, pull our shoulders back and lift up. So we want to just let our back muscles engage, our whole back body engage as we take a couple breaths in infant. It's in yin, it's called infant. Good. And then relax. Bring your elbows under your shoulders. Let your pelvis relax here. And the head can maybe hang down, or you can lift the head up and look up, get a little stretch in the front of the neck, and a little compression in the back of the neck. Or you can move your head around or rest your head on your hands, put your chin on your hands. We want to increase the compression. We can always lift our feet, right, toward the ceiling. So it's the going back and forth between the forward folding and stretching the sacrum and the back bending, or putting the compression and force onto the sacrum. That is so beneficial for that joint. The sacrum, more than any other joint in the body, tends to get fixated as we get older. So we want to stretch and compress it, put that force into it. That keeps it healthy and vibrant. Of course, we're also nourishing our kidneys and our kidney meridian in a back bend pose. This is primarily the back bend pose that we do in yin. There are a couple of other ones that are a little bit intense. So I tend to, and I can't personally do them right now, so I tend not to do them. Sphinx and seal are sufficient. Okay, so let's take a short break in half frog. You want to slide that left knee up and look to the left, resting head on hands. If you need to, you can always let your right arm go alongside your body. That's more comfortable for your shoulder. Just letting that hip relax here. Nice passive hip opener, half frog. Okay, and then we'll slide that leg back down, come back into Sphinx. You want to bring a folded blanket under your arms. You can increase the back bend that way, or to come into seal, you can maybe widen the arms slightly and straighten them, pointing the fingers outward a little bit like a seal. You can also put a bolster underneath your pelvis for support in seal, which I often do. I might do that. Finding whatever works for you. Feel free to go in and out of any of the variations of seal and Sphinx for the next couple of minutes. So paying attention to our breath. If it starts to get a little bit labored, that's just our body telling us to dial it back a little bit. So listening to our body. Obviously in seal, we're increasing that back bend, we're increasing that lumbar compression, stretch in the front of the torso, strengthening our arms and shoulders, of course, stimulating the upper body meridians that run through our arms and our shoulders. I often find that after being in seal for a while, my body will naturally breathe more deeply. It just sort of kicks it into a deeper gear of breath, breathing. So that's because it's our breath that's carrying that energy, the chi, through the channels, right? So important to be breathing fully without forcing it, but breathing fully and evenly while we're in yin poses. So if you are up in seal, you might want to start making your way down to Sphinx gradually. So you can kind of gradually come out of it. And then we will take a break in half frog on the right side. So sliding the right knee up toward the shoulder and looking to the right. Head resting on the hands, and if the left arm wants to come alongside the body, that's more comfortable. And then we'll go ahead and slide that leg back down. We'll come onto our all fours, onto our hands and knees. And if that isn't possible for you, you can come onto your back or another position where you can move your spine. And we'll just slowly curl the tailbone under and start to round the back. And then as we breathe, slowly coming into an arch, lifting the tailbone and arching, moving gently through that rounding and arching. Just like we always want to come out of yin poses slowly, we want to do this slowly because it takes a while for our spine to come back from those extremes. And we'll come to neutral and just circle the hips a little bit here and just let your body sort of go wherever it wants to go. So letting it move and kind of spiral and the other direction. We didn't have class last week. That's why I'm really feeling it. Oh, no, I do a little bit of yin during the week. I don't do as much as we do. Okay, and then we'll sit back in child's pose. Or if you happen to be on your back, you might come into a happy baby or something that feels good to you, where you can give your hips a little bit of a stretch and a little compression. We have our knees apart and our feet a little bit apart. That's tadpole. But any variation of child's pose or tadpole that feels good to you. Such a nourishing pose, child's pose is. That's a really good way to just gently compress the hip joint and the knee joints and stretch the ankles and stretch the sacrum and the spine. And if our arms are extended forward, we're getting a stretch under our shoulder. right, so we'll come up from there onto our knees again. And we'll tuck our toes and come into a downward facing dog for a moment. So make your way up there with the hips lifted and maybe stretching the heels down and letting your body move a little bit with that down dog pose. Maybe letting the brain get a little bit of blood. Inverted poses are really great for the brain and the head. And then we'll come down to our knees and bring our left foot forward. If you can't do dragons, well, doing dragons, if you can't do dragons on your knees, you might come onto your back and come into the supine version, which is like a half happy baby. If you're on your knees on the mat, one hand on either side of the foot to start with, and just finding that amount of lunge that feels good. You can always move in and out of it to find where your edge is. Bend and straighten the knee a little bit. Making sure that our legs and our feet are lined up with our hip, right? So the left leg is lined up with the left hip. The right leg is lined up with the right hip, so the legs are not lined up with each other, right? And then if you want to come into a high flying dragon, you can come up onto the thigh here. Kind of increasing that hip flexor stretch. Or low flying dragon with the hands inside of the foot and lowering down toward the mat. Another variation. Winged dragon, where we roll onto the outer edge of the foot and open the knee out to the side a little bit. Nice stretch for the ankle and opening of the hip. And there's also twisting dragon. If you want to do add a little twist, you can hug your knee in and just look over that left shoulder. All of these variations are available to whatever extent we want to go into them, right? So whatever feels good to your body. Out any of those variations or go through them all. Of course, coming out of it at any point by just letting that leg straighten. In and out of the pose, of course. Oh, and also forgot to mention, if you're on your knees and you want padding under the knee, that's also a good idea for a little support and help for that knee that's on the ground. Okay, so we'll go ahead and sit back into a runner's stretch by just leaning back and straightening that left leg with a foot flex. Just relax over the leg, or if you're on your back, just maybe straighten your leg to the ceiling, right? Whatever feels good to stretch your leg that way. If you're doing the supine dragon. And then we'll bring our knee under us and switch to the right foot forward. I also forgot to mention, if you want blocks for support, you need that for dragons. I need it on the right side. So, or if you're, of course, on your back, you can challenge and with your sole of your foot facing the ceiling, just pulling that knee, kind of gently pulling it down toward the ground. So you feel a little stretch with your left leg stretched out on the ground, right? Feel that hip flexor stretch. Might be using a strap or using your hands. And coming into any of the variations that you want to do on this side, whether that's high flying dragon up on the leg. Put a little pressure on my ankle here. See how that goes. Or low flying dragon inside of the foot, both hands. Or winging that right leg out a little bit to winged dragon. Or twisting dragon, right? Any of the variations. And of course, feel free to come out at any time. If you need a break, you can straighten that leg and for a while, then come back, or feels good to you. It's a very intense hip flexor stretch, so in it for a little bit of time. Also making sure our leg and our foot are lined up with our hip and not with each other. Mention that. All right, so we will straighten that right leg and come into a runner stretch, or if you're on your back, of course, just straighten your leg to the ceiling. a little moment. All right, and then we'll come around to our back, and hug your knees into your chest. Just rock your body or whatever feels good to move around a little bit. Might curl into a ball. That feels good to you. Bringing our head to our knees. And then head on the ground. Just straighten our legs to the ceiling for a moment so we can let the blood flow, come back towards our heart. Yeah. And if you'd like to, you can move your feet while they're up there. You can flex and point or circle the ankles. That feels good. And then we'll bend the knees and we'll cross our right leg over our left, stacking the legs, stacking the knees for twisted roots. So start by hugging your legs in toward your chest here. You can feel that stretch in your right hip area. If you need bolstering or you would want to put bolstering to the left side of you for your twist, you can do that. And then we'll guide our knees over to the left, extending our right arm out from our shoulder. A little bit up, a little bit bent. And making sure your legs are supported in some way here, whether it's bolsters or pillows or your hands, and your right shoulder's on the ground. So if our knees are and our legs are high up in this pose, we're going to feel that stretch in our right outer hip area, thigh area. And the head might want to look toward the legs or toward that extended arm or up to the ceiling. Position the head wants to go. You can change it. So of course, this twist is another nourishing pose for the spleen, the meridian, and the spleen, and all of our digestive organs. Nurturing and nourishing ourselves in a twist. In Chinese medicine, the spleen is of primary importance. really, it's considered the primary digestive organ. It's where we store our blood vessels, the white blood cells, and the spleen creates the white blood cells, and such an important organ. And the spleen gets upset when we when we worry too much or we obsess. That damages the spleen. Or if we eat too many sweets, okay. That's also not so good for the spleen. Or drinking water, especially cold water while you're eating, not so good for the spleen. Okay, so let's start to slowly bring our legs up. You might want to grab your right leg first and then pull the left leg in to the chest, pull both legs in. And maybe rock around a little bit while you switch bolstering, if you've got it, over to the right side. And then we'll stack our left leg on top with the knees stacked. Hug your knees into your chest. Feel that stretch in your left hip. And then we'll guide our legs over to the right with our left arm extending out from the shoulder. A little bit up, a little bit bent is a nice way to stretch that upper arm and front of our shoulder. Making sure our legs are supported here. So this importance of the spleen is it governs the quality of our thoughts, right? So if your spleen isn't healthy, it's going to affect the thinking processes and basically everything, how you feel about yourself, what you believe, right? So important to nourish and feel nourished and nurtured. Western medicine doesn't seem to give that much credence to the spleen, what I can tell. It wasn't until I started learning a little bit about Chinese medicine and the meridians and all of that that I discovered the importance of the spleen. And it's very connected in with our heart as well. I like to end our practice with a twist, of course, because of the naturally relaxing effect that it has on our body and our mind and our heart. But also, it does reset the nervous system, kind of balances and brings it back into equilibrium. Also kind of brings our spine back into natural balance as well. So feel free to stay in that twist a little longer if you want, or you can start to slowly come out of it and come onto your back in whatever way is comfortable. So we can maybe hug our knees or your feet onto the ground. You might bolster under your head or your hips or your chest or anywhere that feels good to you. And we'll just take a moment to integrate. So lying down and breathing, feeling that breath circulating our energy throughout the body. Noticing how you feel. Noticing how the breath is. Probably much fuller and more relaxed. And I'm going to simulate the heartbeat as we integrate and breathe very softly with my little drum. And as a New Year's quote or poem from Rumi, one of my favorites. Let yourself be silently drawn by the strange pull of what you really love. It will not lead you astray. Giving thanks to our body, our breath. Giving thanks to Gaia, to the Mother. Again, let yourself be silently drawn by the strange pull of what you really love. It will not lead you astray. So a little New Year Rumi. Feel free to continue lying down or get up slowly, whatever feels good to you. And thank you for coming.
Thank you, Deb. A great way to start